All
It's the
righty.
boys. It's all the boys.
Yes, it is. All right, guys, welcome back to the 7th week of our project development course in Tech Bytes for the programming language of Python, where we're making a new project every week. And this week, we're going to keep on continuing the project which we've been working on for the past week, that being tic-tac-toe, but with a twist, using something called Tkinter. We'll go over that, do a quick recap just to make sure we're all on the same page as well. And yes, Ayusha, it is boys' night out. If a lot of you are watching this, sorry, a lot of you, but it looks like we're just having some fun out here. But it is the 7th week, so without any further ado, let's get to it. You guys know who we are, guys. My name is Ramsey Sadiq. I'm a senior at Conan High School. We are the boys for programming. Yes, you guys know who we are. Nothing much more to say there. A lot of you is not joining us for today. You guys are all already signed up on our Google Classroom as well, so we can dive deep right away into our project, that being the tic-tac-toe project with Tkinter. Now, as a quick recap of what this project is, guys, remember, it's a basic 3x3 game which we've grown up playing. You paper, pencil, you write it down, make that 3x3 grid. 3 of the same elements, any of the direction wins. But this time we're adding a bit of a twist, not doing everything through the console, meaning we're not going to be looking at everything printed out, adding some more color and making it look a bit nicer in terms of, Chase, what do we like to call our GUI?
GUI.
The GUI, yes.
It's a GUI.
Yes, it is GUI. That's how we're going to call it. We're going to be using the GUI, and the way we're going to use the GUI is using the library, which we learned about in Hack Central last week, I believe it was, that being Tkinter. Remember, Tkinter we can use to make our games look much, much more nicer, and it makes sure that all of our stuff isn't boring. You know, like our Mastermind game, we played it mainly in the console, meaning when we refer to the console, we're usually saying we're going to type some stuff in on the black output box, and we're going to get returned some information. However, with Tkinter, it's able to add some more dazzle and make our games look nicer. And remember, last week we saw a finished version of our tic-tac-toe project, and this week we're going to continue working on that. So today's goal is going to be twofold. Firstly, we're going to take like a couple of minutes to learn about this new idea, this new topic, which is a bit similar. Hopefully it shouldn't be too bad, but it's about two-dimensional arrays and how they're going to play a role in this project. Learn about the uses which they have in the real world as well. Then we're going to get towards coding. Today's coding main focus is not going to be with 2D arrays. Today I just want to introduce that idea, but we are going to work with Tkinter. Specifically, we're going to get that 3x3 grid set up, make sure that stuff it looks nice, get some buttons on the screen, and then a function which is going to be responsible for changing our turns, and that is if we have time. But firstly, let's get started with this idea of two-dimensional arrays. Alrighty, so in fact, how about even before we get to 2D arrays, let's do a quick discussion right here. What do we remember about original arrays? Anybody give us a definition, what they remember, what do we use them for? Let's do a quick run through. Oh, come on, I know you guys know. You three boys, come on now. Somebody knows. What does an array do? Anybody have anything they remember about an array?
Isn't it like a set of values?
Exactly, yep. And you know, like Rishi was just showing before his class, he had a bunch of arrays. He was using actually a module called NumPy, which NumPy makes manipulating arrays very nicely. NumPy is any other module like Tkinter, guys, we can import. It's very nice when working with machine learning types of topics in order to manipulate our data. But remember, like Ayusha said, an array is a way for us to hold multiple values in one variable. So say we have the numbers 1 through 10. We want to store them in one variable. We add the brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Store them in a variable, whatever we want to call it, and then we can use it. But two-dimensional arrays are a bit different. Anybody have an idea as to what they think a 2D array could be just off the name?
A two-dimensional array, which has like two functions, I guess.
All right, interesting idea. Two functions. Yep, it definitely has multiple purposes if we're looking in that type of way. In terms of when we think about math, right? You know, at middle school point, we're probably only working with one-dimensional data, graphing, probably doing slope stuff right now, right? It's pretty on it's one plane right now. Nothing has become too complex. Well, two-dimensional arrays, you can think of it, it's another step up. And in terms of coding, Two-dimensional arrays are what they sound like. It's an array inside of an array. And literally, we'll see in a couple minutes when we code this out, do a quick example. When coding out 2D arrays, you add a bracket, then you add another sub-bracket, add whatever data you want inside of there, close the bracket, and close the larger bracket, and there you go. You have a fully created two-dimensional array. Now let's take a look right here. We have a who can tell me what is the, you know how when we're measuring stuff, when like say you're going to Home Depot or something like that, right? You're measuring your door. You do length times width, right? You're like, oh, it's a 4 foot by 6 foot door, right? Something of that sort. And similarly, when we are working with two-dimensional arrays, we're also giving them a measurement. So does anybody have an idea? What is the number by number of this array? What are the dimensions?
0 to 2 and 0 to 2, or like 2 by 2.
Exactly, Chase. Yep. So this is a two-dimensional array, and specifically, those dimensions are 2 by 2. Now, the thing is, when we usually think about like when we're doing actual stuff, right? So say we're looking at the area of our door, 6 by 4, it's going to be 24 feet, right, squared. But in arrays and coding, it's a bit different. You know, so Chase, when I say a 2 by 2 array, how many items do you think are in the array?
4, or in this sense, it looks like 9, since this we don't count the 0.
Exactly. That's the super important point, which we got to remember about two-dimensional arrays. In real life, when we're talking in English, we can say, hey, 2 by 2, that's 4 feet squared. That's the area, right, of whatever we're looking at, if it's a square or something of that sort. But when we're talking about code, it's a bit different. If we're saying we got a 2 by 2 array, that actually means, wait, everything in coding starts at the 0th index. So I got a +1, all the dimensions. So if I have a 2 by 2 array, what is the actual, like how many elements can it actually hold?
9.
Exactly. So let's do a little speed round right here. So say we have a 3 by 3 two-dimensional array. How many elements can this hold?
14.
So remember, we're going 1 up on each side. So 3 plus 1 is 4, and then times 3 plus 1 is 4. So 4 plus 4 is 16.
I was just by 2.
Yep, so similar, we can do another example. How about if we got a 4 by 4 array? How many elements can this hold? Some quick math right here.
25.
Yep, nice, Ibuki. Thanks for coming in. We're just getting started, Ibuki, talking about two-dimensional arrays. So if you got any questions, do let us know. But we're talking about how a 2D array is an array inside of an array. And we're talking about the dimensions. So say, like you just said, if it's a 4 by 4 array, we're doing 5 times 5, aka 5 squared, getting us 25 elements can be stored in that array. So a nifty math formula, if you're going to think about it, say you have a 4 by 4 array, just do the base, which is this number, and square it, and you'll know how many items can be stored in that array. But now let's visualize this a bit more. Oh, Starlink is making a way to Schaumburg. Well, that would be cool.
Yeah, it'll be available later this year. They've already like started commercially in the like the northern latitudes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I know right now fiber is a
Yeah.
big thing, but Starlink.
Yeah. AT&T fiber, but like it's good, but like it's not available like in a lot of places.
The thing is,
Starlink's gonna be good because like it'll have like really low lag time, and it'll be like really stable because there's like gonna be a huge constellation of them. So.
And also the thing is, AT&T fiber requires a lot of wiring. It's very inconvenient in your home. So like, say if someone in your house, it's not.
Starlink's just gonna have like a satellite dish, but they're gonna make it expensive, like really expensive. It's like $4.99 for the satellite dish, and then $99 a month for the internet.
Oh no, we just lost somebody. Ibuki's gone. All right, Ibuki.
Yeah, Ibuki's gone.
Well, all right. So let's put this in perspective of our tic-tac-toe project, 2D arrays. Can anybody tell me what type of dimensions, measurements are we going to use for our two-dimensional array with tic-tac-toe?
2 by 2.
Exactly. And the reason, Chase, is because we have 9 elements. So if we're thinking 9 elements, we go 1 less, 2 by 2. Now, specifically in a 2-dimensional array, the way it works, so say we have an original array, right? We just have data like this, right? But in a 2-dimensional array, we have an array inside of an array. So what we're going to do is have 3 arrays inside of this large array. And the reason is because we're going to have an array representing one whole row. Second array is going to represent this whole row, and the third array is going to represent this whole row. So 3 arrays inside of one large array making up our 2-dimensional array. So we're going to have something, values in here, which are going to represent where and which type of position has a player made a move. So is there an X mark? Is there a circle mark? Depending on the position. So let's do some naming convention right here. So say this is the 0th spot. So say if I do a quick numbering, this is, that's pretty bad. There we go. So this is going to be the 0th, the first position, the second position. This is the first in the Y direction, and this is the second in the Y direction. Oh, I think Ibuki is back. All right, Ibuki, you're good. And we got more people coming on in as well. Hey, Aruj, we're just talking about 2-dimensional arrays right now in our project. All right. So say, like Chase has told us, we're going to have a 2-dimensional array, a 2 by 2 array for our 9 positions where a user can make a move. Now this spot in, there's going to be a 0 right here. So this spot, if we want to reference it, this is going to be the 0th spot, because that's where, if we take a look, it's occurring. So the 0th X, 0th Y. Can anybody tell me the coordinates of this spot? The one got my mouse hovering over? So this would be the 0, 1. It always goes row and then column. And then this would be the 0th 2 spot. Anybody have an idea for what this spot will be? The coordinates?
1, 0?
Exactly. Remember, it's always a row and then column. Yep, Aruj, the next one is going to be 1, 1. This one is going to be 1, 2. And then Chase, finish this off. This one's going to be?
2, 0.
Yep. This one?
2, 1.
Yep, and the last one?
2, 2.
Exactly. So this is the basic idea with 2-dimensional arrays. It's going to be especially useful because we're going to be able to check so say we're checking for a diagonal. We can check if this diagonal, checking these coordinates of our 2-dimensional array, we can check this diagonal, and then essentially using conditionals and if-else statements next week, we're going to be using this idea in checking if a user, the X person or the circle person has won. We will be doing more with coding 2D arrays next week as well, but this week the main purpose was just to visualize, get this idea sorted out. But if anybody has any questions, now would be the time to ask.
What game are we going to be doing for our next video game day?
Ooh, I have not thought about it. That's going to be next week, but any ideas? If you got any ideas, for sure, let me know, and we can do them. We could do a classic like Pictionary or Among Us again, but if you got something new, we're all ears.
I can do anything, really.
All right.
I mean, I'd be fine with another thing of Among Us, because then I could vote out Joe.
Well, I think we can wait for that. That'd be fine. Let's see. All right, so that is essentially 2D arrays in a nutshell. We're definitely going to put this more in application next week. But right now, I want to take a quick moment to connect this idea with real-life data. We talked about these arrays, but how do these 2D arrays make a role in real life? Well, they play a significant role, and especially when we're keeping track of multiple pieces of data. So say we have we're keeping track, so say it's like a science experiment, right? We're keeping track of the degrees outside in Celsius every 6 hours. So if it's every 6 hours, we're going to be measuring 4 times per day, because 24 divided by 6 is 4. Rishi, the link will be coming out really soon after we just finish this idea. So say we have 4 pieces of data, we can keep track of each day's data by creating its own array. So who can tell me which day is this representing? What data is this representative of? Day 1, day 2, day 3, or day 4?
Day 1.
Exactly. The reason
Day
is
1.
because we're looking at that. Yep. And this,
Day
go on.
2.
Yep.
Day 3, day 4.
Exactly. So meteorologists actually use 2-dimensional arrays with code a lot this year, especially in the past couple of years where it's becoming much more data driven, helps us keep track of when determining weather, guys. There's millions of pieces of data which are being taken into account. There's wind current. You're looking at patterns from the past, a bunch of cool stuff going on there, which we can take some time to talk about later. But it just goes to show us that the stuff we're learning has a real application as well, which is important to know about. All right, so with that introduction about 2D arrays and their applications out of the way, let's get towards the fun stuff. We've already applied 2D arrays on our whiteboard, so we can check that off as well. But now let's get to the nitty gritty and start working with Tkinter, making our board nice, clean as well on our coding website. So I'm going to drop the link to the code, which is the shared document, and we can start coding there from our Replit. And I'll see you guys there as well. The link is coming to the chat. Aruj asking me, when did I start coding? Aruj, it was I took my first coding class in freshman year, AP Computer Science Principles. I highly recommend it. If you guys are going to high school, take it.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Good, yeah.
I'm taking AP Computer Science, Tech Applications or whatever that, I don't remember the name exactly. I think that's Tech Applications. And I'm also taking, what do you call it? Spanish.
Okay, Spanish, definitely continue that through. Spanish 2, I'm assuming?
No, Spanish 1. I didn't take Spanish 2.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, for sure. AP Computer Science Principles, a bunch of fun. What school? High school? Oh, you're still waiting on the IMSA, right? So.
And if I don't get into that, because I mean, like, I don't have like a qualifying science course, like exactly qualifying, but they might they could make an exception or something. But if I don't get in, then I'll probably go to Conant.
All right. If you go to Conant, if you get Mr. Cortez, it's pretty crazy. He's that one teacher I've had for 4 years in a row. He's been my CS teacher. So a bunch of memories there. But APCSB at Conant is the program, the computer science, Conant created the whole computer science program for District 211. So the teachers we have, it's unmatched. And the program, the stuff we learned, you guys learned first semester is JavaScript and HTML, making some products with that. And the second semester it's Python. So you're definitely going to have a fun time if you guys take that route. All right. So now let's.
Yeah, I probably have to learn JavaScript because I haven't even done any JavaScript in 5 years. Well, not 5 years. It's been 2 years almost.
You see, the thing with coding is once you learn the main idea in one language, it gets much more easier to apply that same idea. Like when I'm thinking about JavaScript and Python, sure, the way it's like a language. I say hello in Spanish, I say hello in English, right? The way it's going to be the same. The message is still the same. The way I'm going to write it is the only difference. So just being able to find out how to do it in something different, I'm sure you'll find it easy to adapt because the concept is all that matters. All right, so now let's get towards actually making our Tkinter module, using that and creating that board, which we made. Aruj asking us what high school. Aruj, I go to Conant, and I'm not sure. Chase, do you know where you're going?
I'm homeschooled, so.
Oh, yeah, still, yes.
While you were talking, I was thinking of putting hello. I was thinking of putting print, hello, this is the project and it has come to life.
Well, let's put some life into this.
We could do that. We could start off like that.
Well, in order to put some life, how about we first create a function which is going to be responsible for what we're going to call this function to create all the buttons in our project. So what I'm going to do is say def create buttons, open and close parentheses. Now today's code is going to be a bit weird, I must warn you guys, because it's not the typical conditionals for loops. It's working heavily with the Tkinter module in order to set up the nice grid. So there's going to be some stuff which I'm just going to write, and you guys can just follow along. It's not that important. You don't have to really know it, because if we're using Tkinter, we're usually going to be using online resources. So I wouldn't really say don't worry about it too much. So we're going to pass in a parameter, which is going to say frame, add our colons, indentation correctly. And now we're going to say that this function is going to be responsible for returning a button. Now, how that button is going to be made, we'll see in just the moment. But before we do, I want to create the actual graphical screen, the square, which pops up in the top right with our Tkinter module. So in order to do this, we're going to use some new code. I'm going to say something like the root is going to be equal to our Tkinter module. So equal to TK, like this. Now this is going to be a bit weird, but essentially you have to think of this being our window. This is that initialization. When we pop the window, which is going to pop up, it's going to be that basic window, which is going to appear in a little bit. Now what we can do is also give our window a title. So we can say the title of our window, we can just say something like Tech Bytes Tic-Tac-Toe. Like this. All right, and if we run this, we're not going to be able to see anything at the moment, and that is because our Tkinter module is not defined, which is a bit weird. Well, it may be because we're not importing some other stuff from Tkinter. So I believe that we also have to import the. There we go. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is the thing. We're also going to be, remember last week how we talked about modules and there's certain stuff which we can pull from libraries instead of importing the whole library. We're also going to import a specific module, a bit weird denotation, right? It's shift 8, aka the £, but it's going to allow us to create our window eventually. So once we have our title written down as well, what we're going to do is create a for loop. And more specifically, we're going to create a for loop which is going to create that 3x3 row of buttons. But before we can do that, we got to declare our two-dimensional array. So I'm going to say this is going to be, we can just call it buttons array and set it equal to, now remember, the main thing with two-dimensional arrays is that they're arrays within arrays. So I'm going to have one large array, and then anybody have an idea how many subarrays will I have inside of this large array if we have 3 rows?
3.
Exactly, Chase. So I'm going to have one right here, comma, we add our second one, comma, and then we add our third one. For now, we don't have to initialize or add any data inside of them because we're going to be doing that in our for loop next. All right, so now let's get towards creating the actual for loop, which is going to be responsible for creating the 3x3 rows and columns. So firstly, what I'm going to do is we can just say for x in range. We can run it 3 times because it's going to be 3x3. And then we're going to do, since we're talking about two-dimensional arrays, we have the coordinates, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. We're going to need to have a separate for loop, which is going to keep track of the y coordinates. So I'm going to say for y in range of 3 again. And now if I were to print out, I can say x is, just to get a quick visualization right here, x, and then print out y is y. If I run this, give it a minute. Oh, forgot the comma. There we go. We can see our screen coming to life as well, our GUI, like we like to call it. And then we also see our x and y coordinates, the 0, 2, 1, 0, all of the different locations which can come about. All right. So with that down, now all we have to do is actually create the buttons. Now for this, it's not really worth our time for me to explain what goes on behind this, but essentially it's a way for us to create buttons. I'm just going to copy and paste some code, which I've written from the past right here. And essentially the main thing which I'm going to say, this code is responsible for handling when we're going to click on our buttons and for actually configuring the buttons, which are going to appear in just a slight moment. And one thing, if you do want to do, make sure that indentation is correct. Make it indented back so that it fits correctly, like this. And also, I'm going to replace the B since we are calling it our button array. So make sure to change that as well. And change the variables from I to X and the J's to Y's. Like this. Now, it looks like we're still getting some errors, and the reason is because we're calling this create buttons function, but we're not actually creating anything at the moment. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is replace this create buttons function with wherever we're saying button. So just there, I believe. There we go. All right. So now we actually have to do the creation of our buttons. Now, once again, I'm going to use a line which I've written in the past in order to create this button, as there are a bunch of features when talking about a button. As you guys can see right there, we have the dimensions, aka how big is the button going to be, the font we're using, the width, the background, how much weight, how thick is the text on the button. So all that matters when creating buttons with Tkinter. I usually we're talking about HTML and JavaScript. If we were to create a button with HTML, it's much more simpler. It's one line across the board, button, whatever you want. Aruj is confusing. Yeah, Aruj, I wouldn't today. If it's confusing, don't really be afraid, because this stuff is not really that important. It's just us creating the bare bones of our interface. So if I hit run now, we are getting an error. Oh, I still got to replace all the i's with x and all the j's with y, since we're using some different variable names. Alrighty, so hopefully that should work. Oh, we actually might still have an error. Oh, never mind. There we go. Alrighty, so we can see our Tkinter module, although still some errors. That is not to worry, because we're going to address those errors tomorrow. Yep, Chase talking about the YouTube video. We did cover and start planning the project out last week, but I'm going to tell you guys right now, if this stuff isn't making sense, do not worry. Essentially, what I would say is just document right here. This is creating the 3x3 grid with Tkinter. This is not as important. The main thing is, Aruj, are you comfortable with the idea of two-dimensional arrays? That's what I want you to more be focused about. Okay, yeah, that's the main thing. Remember, so this is going to be representing the 0 spot. And then just like an X and Y coordinate, it's going to be the 1, 0 spot. This is going to be 1, 0. This is going to be 1, 0 right here. Oh, wait, it's going to be 0, 1. This is going to be 1, 1. And just like that, we're going to keep on working our way through, sort of like X and Y coordinates when you're plotting a points on a graph. But remember, once again, this stuff is not as important as the stuff which we have covered before. This is just a way for us to create that buttons which are appearing. And moreover, once I hover over them, you can see the colors changing. This is something cool with Tkinter which we can do. And that's also possible today as well. And also, we're talking about creating our buttons. Do not worry about this. This is just the creation of the buttons, just so that we can hover over them. The width and height, nothing much more to that as well. But starting next week, we're going to get started into more of the logical sense of the game concerning the winning, looking at our two-dimensional arrays, using some conditionals to check for the up, down, diagonals, and seeing if a winner has occurred in any of the following places. But for today, that wraps up our coding thing. Coding exercise, not much to it. You know, guys, once again, if you're confused, it is all right. This stuff is just with Tkinter. It's not the main point with our project. In fact, the reason we are using Tkinter is because one of us had an idea when we were doing Hack Central to use it. So I was like, what better way to get our hands dirty with Tkinter than actually code it out? Alrighty, guys. So that takes us till the end of our 7th week of our product development course. Hopefully, you guys are still having a good time. Remember, don't be confused. It's all right. But next week, we're going to start getting into more the nitty-gritty of our tic-tac-toe project, looking at what happens when somebody clicks a button, alternating the turns. So say X goes first, then circle goes, and handling the winning, creating some functions to handle that logic as well. Hopefully, you guys had a good time. Guys, take care. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
See you.